This is the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. It's Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 at 5 p.m. And the first order of business is a roll call of members present. Linda Escobedo.
Yes, I'm here.
And Mike Lawson.
Present.
Rich Feely.
Present.
And Keith Bergman present. Carrie LaFleur will not be present tonight. Just heard from Carrie, and I see also attending our meeting with us is Regional Housing Services Office Director Liz Rusk. So welcome. And I see also Linda Miller, Chair of the Planning Board, on the call too. And we'll all be seeing Linda and the Planning Board tomorrow night, or many of us will, 6:30 on the latest MBTA communities zoning. Well, no, I'm sorry, Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night at the townhouse or on Zoom. So looking forward to that. Next item is approval of minutes, and I did distribute a set of minutes from our September 5th meeting, and I think I sent it out sometime last week. So I wonder if I have a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Rich. Is there discussion? All right, so on the motion to approve the minutes, we'll do a roll call. Linda?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
And Keith, aye. So it's approved by unanimous vote 4-0. Thank you. Next item is the trust grant application to the Community Preservation Committee, and also I have on our agenda our forthcoming application for ARPA funding. First, I have reached out, but I don't know yet, or maybe the information is not published yet, of when we and others would be able to submit applications for ARPA funding. Hopefully we'll find out about that while the application period is open, and but I don't know what it is right now, and have reached out to Carrie and Megan about that, and might be hearing back soon. What I did want to put
May I go back to, sorry, Keith, may I go back to the application to CPC?
Yes, yeah, indeed. Yeah, because what I want to, what I'm going to do for starters, a bunch of things to show tonight. And I'm going to start with this spreadsheet, which is an updated one and can you see on the far right column?
Yes.
Because what I've added, this is our list of the worksheet we've been using to track housing projects that are going after various funding sources. And what I've added is the 4 applications in the final column on the right. The 4 applications that were received by CPC by their deadline on September 8th, totaling $1.2 million. In fact, the total amount of applications the CPC got was over $2.5 million, $2.5 million in all 4 categories: housing, historic, open space, and recreation. And I know Carrie was telling the select board last night that while the official estimate hasn't been announced, it'll be approximately $2 million, not 2.5, or that will be available to the CPC for funding. So they'll likely need to make some cuts. CPC meets tonight at 7 to begin to schedule when they're going to review particular applications. Ours is, when offered either of the two dates, they're planning that next Tuesday, the 26th of September, or October 17th. I chose the September date because I'm not here on the October one. But I have prepared for our review tonight a draft PowerPoint if that's what they mean by a presentation. So anyway,
Keith, given you've put this chart up, how do you view at this point the trust application, given we've got four other housing units who have also applied?
well, we've got two. Yeah, we have the Housing Authority and the CHDC, and
I should say three, because the one is from the town. Yeah,
from the town. So what struck me about is all of the applications for funding for affordable housing, none of them identify the properties. They're all speculative. There's no particular buy down that's proposed by CHDC. There's no particular, at the moment, property that the Housing Authority would do. And of the menu of projects that we've identified, and in this chart shows Assabet, pre-development for Junction Village, acquiring the surplus state property, and funding the 40B host community agreement. All of those could be done, we hope, with funds that we have in hand. We may also need more money than the $3 million we have in hand to do all of those. If some of them, if any one of them costs more than we suspect it might, we may need to carry over some of the projects that don't proceed as quickly to the following year. But we have identified doing having money ready for a Junction Village development phase, or funding feasibility of specific sites, and being a funding source for the Housing Authority as among the things that are our top priorities. So I think the commonality for me was that all the applications are simply for more money for projects that will be known with more certainty at a future date, but are not necessarily known now. And we know that as we've been saying, the Junction Village one is going to need more money eventually to get done. If I had a question for the CHDC, it would be, if they're looking to amass about $500,000 for a housing buy down, is that a higher priority for them than setting aside money for than having money for Junction Village? Of course, the issue there for all of us about Junction Village is we've set money aside for it in the past, and it took so long to and we never reached the point that we could actually spend it. So we're I think perhaps all wary about that, putting aside too much for Junction Village now, even though we know that when we need it, we're really going to need a lot. And I think that for me, one of the wild cards is on any of these other projects, well, acquiring the surplus property is state property is one thing. What about development of it? What kind of subsidies are going to need, and is that more likely to be something we would want to have money prepared for? So I think those are some of the issues that challenge us And it's, with many of them, it's going to be a matter of timing. When are the projects ready to proceed?
You know, I have one question looking at this chart at this point. And that is, you know, the CHDC Small Grants Program is listed here, and yet they were not eligible for CPC money. So, you know, I'm not sure how it was justified that this is included here. I'm sure you're going to refer back to the housing production plan.
Yes.
And do you recall the justification that it was included there when it?
Well, they didn't apply I guess I defer. We have, I'm going to stop sharing the screen so I can see other faces here. Okay. Yeah. Liz, why don't you?
Yeah, it's I don't have exactly right here, but it's very much called out specifically in the housing production plan to fund the small grants program because it is not CPA eligible and the funds are depleted. So it was called out specifically to find a funding source for the small grants program, if that's what you're asking.
Is the question, why is it not eligible for what is it about that
No, and then the CPC funds that were given to us were for 80% SHI, right?
No, well, yes, that's true, but that fact doesn't prevent the CHDC from applying to CPC for the small grants program. I'm assuming that the answer why they didn't is because they determined they can't.
That's correct. It's not an eligible CPA program.
But the CPC monies that were transferred to the trust.
The trust has non-CPA monies that would fund the small grant.
Yeah, we have
Less.
2 million approximately in non-CPA funds and only 1 million in CPA funds in our trust fund.
Yeah, annual free cash appropriations from the town.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be eligible to apply for. I'm guessing that the CHDC would have standing to apply for ARPA funds through whatever the town's process is. You know,
Yes, yes, I'm sure, but with such a small amount of money.
Whether it be
doesn't
for
seem
this or
appropriate,
something
right?
else, you know.
Yeah, and I think the desire was that the ARPA funds be more capital related, where this, I don't think it kind of is, but it's on a much smaller scale than generally what's thought of there.
Okay, good. Thank you.
But I think Linda is pointing out an important issue, and that is like the other grant applications to CPC, ours does not specify any particular use. And that's a pretty hefty lift, $1.2 million for the CPC, it seems to me, without specificity of the use of the funds.
Yeah, well, what we've identified is that we've got three, well, what our grant application said is that we've identified how we could expend our existing money and then how we would propose to expend the additional grant money on various projects. But I can't say which of the ones that we've identified as reserve is the one that we would spend that $500,000 on. It's just as likely that that money could be needed to do one of the projects for which we're spending this year's money, if it doesn't go far enough.
No, I understand. I just think that this will present some issues for the CPC as they.
Well, it does, but we're not standing in any different status than the CHDC is in asking to bring its, to do additional money for a buy down. The trust, if they had a buy down that they needed, they could have, put that on our radar screen and applied to us for the money, or to express interest in using trust funds for that. But their application, as far as I can see, does not propose to spend that money on a particular buy down opportunity. Any more than we identify which of the three likely suspects for needing that money will be the one that we would need the CPA funds for. And ultimate, and we're applying, and our funding goal is $1 million in additional funds from going to two sources for half each. And I think both our success there is going to depend on who else is applying and for how much, and how do we compare with those. But I think if we don't ask, we don't get. And with the small exception, the not so small exception, that this year we didn't ask, but we did get $1,044,000 from the CPC and $1 million from the town without asking. Because reallocating those Christopher Heights funds to the trust
Sure.
for the plan is the best thing. I can't do any better than saying that. I don't think we can do any better than saying the projects that will advance will be a collective decision of all of our roundtable partners. And as things change, we've got our list of things that we're prioritizing for right now, and we'll see which of those actually result in someone submitting a grant application to us.
Another two applications.
Which is the reason why I'm determined to have a set of application forms and processes in place as soon as possible. I hope we can make substantial progress on that tonight, even if we need to hold it over for a week and vote to do it a week from now. But I don't want us to go much further without having a set of forms and applications in place, so we can get started. So let's see. So what I was hoping to get from this agenda item is if we are called upon to make a presentation next Tuesday night in front of the CPC, then this would be, it would be a timely opportunity to review with you now what that presentation might look like. So with that dawning on me over the weekend, I put together this slide presentation, which with your permission, I'll run through just very quickly. This slide summarizes what we're asking for, and it shows the total project budget, including our current balance, and requesting $500,000 each from CPA and ARPA, that we're looking to advance housing production plan priority projects, and that in the case of the CPA funds, we're specifically proposing that it be used for so-called affordable community housing, which CPC understands to mean or means to understand it as 80% of AMI, so it counts on the inventory. Next is a slide that they've seen before, because they've been part of our presentations at the Housing Roundtable, but just a reminder that who our partners, for the public, of who our partners are that helped us come up with this with the universe of projects from which we were able to come up with priorities. And that what we're about is implementing the housing production plan strategies, and that we have a policy vote of support from the select board for doing just what we're doing now, and that is allocating some of our funds for projects to proceed this year, reserving other funds to proceed beyond that, and to pursue additional funding from CPA and the town. So we're doing that with the select board's support, if no one else's. And then here's a list of the projects that summarizing what the projects are on our radar screen. I've added a third column here because I think it's important to see. We've got our allocated ones, to allocate our funds, the others to reserve additional funds we may get, and then to just keep on the radar screen. Future funding will be needed for development of Junction Village, and that's just needs to be a part of every discussion that we have on this. We could perhaps stop there, or either I prepared these slides as sort of supplemental slides if we need to go further, but just updates on what the projects are. In fact, I felt in some way obliged, because the CPC has given us $1 million for this year, is to give them an update on what do we think, what are we going to spend that money on? And it's going to be from among these 4 projects, Assabet River Bluff, and this just pulls information out of the application, Junction Village, pre-development, the Riverside Commons 40B to be able to fund whatever financial provisions come out of a host community agreement negotiated by the select board and the developer. And then the surplus state property at 91B Main Street. So that's sort of it. That was what I had in mind. They will, of course, have our written application. But for the public, I thought it might be a helpful overview of what we're trying to do. And wanted to get your feedback.
I think those are great, and I think it will be very helpful to them as they sort their way through making various allocations, to have that kind of not just depth, but sort of soup to nuts layout of where we've been and where we're going and how we're going to get there. So I think that's a very productive set of slides.
Thanks. Yeah, I really am trying to get to sell the process here, because it is the process of our working collaboratively with our partners and figuring, guiding what we're going to do with the funds that we're granted.
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure, yeah.
Yep. So in the slide where you had the columns with the check marks,
yeah.
I didn't know if you wanted to, because you mentioned it in words, is add a check mark to the state-owned land for future. Because,
That's an excellent suggestion. Yes, let me pull that up, because
you don't know what's going to happen with that, but it's likely that there's some funding that might be required.
Right. Just so we don't lose sight of that. That's an excellent suggestion. And see, so that would be done this way. Anything else we want to? Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, press save. And any other suggestions or edits on that? I'm assuming rather that the CPC will decide tonight when they're having, you know, the trust on their meeting. I hope it's next Tuesday, but if it should be some other date, or if they're meeting another time, we can govern ourselves accordingly.
I
So,
also know they have a site visit plan, not for any of our stuff, but for other applications this Saturday, so.
that's right. Yeah, Saturday they'll have a site visit, and it's true. Well, you know, the one suggestion I made as well, if you're in the neighborhood of West Concord, it's not so far to take a, you know, just acknowledge that how we're spending our money this year is all within a short walk of the train station, for those 4 projects that I showed. So, all right, very good. Would there be folks that would be able to attend next, if it's next Tuesday night, for the CPC? I'll be there. I'm not even sure if it's on Zoom or in person, but
I'm there, yeah.
okay. Great, very good.
I could be there, but I also, it's the planning board is meeting that
Okay.
night, so
Okay.
I have to try to figure that out.
Right. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how at precisely 7 o'clock tonight I can watch both the ZBA and the CPC.
You and
Well, it's
Bob.
very simple. You have your computer and your phone,
Yes.
and you have them each logged in. I've done it with a phone, an iPad, and a computer. So
Okay.
you can actually do 3 at one time. And-
Wow.
Very
I can
good.
be there
but
next Tuesday
but
night.
it's not recommended.
Not recommended, no.
It's not good for sanity and other
That's right. That's
blood
right.
pressure reduction.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Tuesday if you want.
You've hit a nerve right there with, that's what I've been busy getting my numbers down so I can get my kidney numbers back up. And it's and I lost 15 pounds in the last couple of weeks in that. So,
And it helped.
well, so far, yeah, I'm back to where I should have been, but but I sure miss that carbohydrates. So, all right, very good. So with that, I'll go ahead and prepare, be prepared to submit that presentation for the CPC. So thanks very much.
And you'll let us know if you want us Tuesday night, Keith.
Yes, sure would. Yeah, I will. I'll confirm the date when CPC makes that determination. That's great. Thank you. The next item, and one which I hope we can take some time with tonight, is to look at the trust's grant application and procedures for inviting priority projects to apply to us for funding so that projects can proceed. And I had distilled it down to 2 documents, and which I've shared with you in draft form, and I'll put them up in just a moment. But I do have to say that the exercise, I learned a lot. I learned an awful lot from actually writing a grant to someone else, to the CPC, and using their forms of figuring out. And many times during that painful process, I thought, oh, okay, well, you know, if we're going to borrow the CPCs as a model, then here's some language that needs to change or it doesn't apply, or here are some changes that we might want to make. And importantly, I like the idea that the CPC has a document that they change every year, and they have, which is what they call their, forget what they call it, but it's a policy document which sort of describes what their grand vision is for how CPC funds should change. Theirs is a 70-page document that they've been updating for decades. Ours could boil down to a page or two. But I think it's a useful way to identify what our current thinking is on how trust funds should be spent, having gone through the process of implementing, our priority funding plan, to describe how we're going to maintain and modify that on a periodic basis in concert with our housing roundtable partners, and have that. And I think in that document, we can include what our selection criteria are, and we can reach back to a couple of places for that, which I'll talk about. The other document, which would not need to be amended as frequently, would be basically, how do you fill out the application form? What information is requested and how do you fill it out? And for that, I just did massive editing of the CVC's application form itself. Thank goodness I was able to download a trial version of the Adobe Acrobat that you have to pay for, so I could take their PDF file and make a Word document out of it and then edit it. But that was the process I went through over the weekend to change their application form into ours. And it also caused me to identify a number of questions we'll want to ask ourselves about our application process. For starters, do we really they need 10 hard copies for them, because I guess they have 9 members. If any of us need a printed copy, we can require them. But if we don't need it, or in the town says they don't need a print copy, that we might want to think about going paperless, because it's all going to end up on the town website anyway. Just one thought. The other was, and I've raised this with Megan and Kerry and have some initial feedback. How would where the CPC has a specific staff person assigned to them, and so they can identify that the application will get dropped off at the planning division on Kai's Road, or sent to a certain email address of some town staff person. How do we fill that in, since we don't have either of those? And so one strategy I suggested is let me say, I don't have answers for that tonight, but hope that the language that we can come up with will leave a place that the town administration can fill in just as soon as they're comfortable with what the answer to that is. One thought I had was maybe create, for dealing with the outside world, just create what's called a forwarding email address, and it could be something as simple as our initials, which, by the way, are not ones that you've read in the newspaper, or we are I think there was an F where there should have been an H, and when I read in the paper, but the CMAHT, maybe our email forwarding address could be cmaht@concordma.gov, or whatever the suffix is. With that being most systems allow for forwarding addresses like that it would then email sent to that address then goes to whatever the distribution list that has been established behind it, which could be the 5 of us, whatever staff person actually would be forwarding applications received to various town departments for comments. I think that's an important thing that we should have the ability to do. I don't think it should be the role of any of us as staff, as non-staff people, to be forwarding things to town departments for comment. It's I think the administration would have a better response rate than any of us, if they could help send out to their folks. But in any event, if we had a set of application, if we had an application form and instructions, it need not change as frequently as sort of an updated mission statement and how we're proposing to spend it. So that's what I'd like to dive into for a few minutes, if you're ready. I don't know if we have any general comments before we start that, though.
I have a quick comment. One, I don't need to talk about tonight, obviously, but we might think about using some of our own funds to hire somebody on a part-time basis to provide that kind of administrative support. That would certainly be perfectly appropriate. And my other comment is, I know for other committees, when I was on the select board, the town set up a set of online folder structures to facilitate incoming and outgoing communications. So I suspect once we figured out exactly how we want to do it, we could go to the town and ask them to create a similar structure for us.
Right. Yeah, good suggestion about the if the town has an internal structure to direct files and emails, that would be helpful for us to be able to take advantage of. The issue of us funding staff or funding assistants, I mean, I've raised that before and have either been told that that's not an appropriate use of our limited non-reoccurring funds, which I don't disagree with, but rather that even if we were going to spend the money, that the town doesn't have staff to give us. So, and I don't see us going outside the town structure, and certainly we're. But anyway, it's a problem which I hope can be solved by the town bringing itself up to full staffing capacity, so that we might get some time with them, because it's been very, very limited up till now. Liz.
So I know you've talked a lot about your staffing, so I'll just kind of leave that. The RHSO supports all of the town and is an option if that's of anything. But I did want to offer on a very specific basis for your form, the fill-in PDF. I could assist in creating that form for you with the fill-in PDF if that's of assistance.
Well, that's great. Yeah, thanks very much. It was so frustrating for me to see that I couldn't do it on the CPCs and that many people were actually handwriting. They'd print it out and handwrite it.
So I do, when I create the CPC, I insert text boxes into each field, but yes.
That's what I did that too. And then I created an image and then layered over a bunch of text boxes. But once I filled out my residential exemption application form that the assessor sent out, I said, oh, here's a fillable electronic form that the town produced. So it's been done once, so that here, and so I know we must be able to avail ourselves of that technology. But
it's a standard PDF technology.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
So once you have, if you want to take me up on that, once you have it designed on paper the way you want it, then then I can work on just putting it in that, and we could sort of go from there.
All right, great. Thanks very much. Appreciate that.
Sure.
There's certainly maybe other things that we can have the Regional Housing Services Office do for us. The one thing I want to avoid, though, is having you have to review applications that you've written on behalf of someone else, and so that's probably the. But of course, we're all working for multiple masters at some.
Yeah, I am often in positions where I see different parts of the same project from different parts, but I don't vote, and I try very hard to be fair and just upfront with the information and not, provide all the information and all the pieces. So, but that's up to you and your comfort part. In terms of reviewing them, it would be really, all I would ever do is review the completeness to bring to you, and then you do all the deliberation. So whatever, but I can appreciate the concern. So whatever you want to do.
Yeah, in fact, what I would want to put on the table, not for resolution at some point, is, and I've referenced it a bit in the process here. I'm really looking for, when we do get completed applications for review, I think we need more than just the 5 of us, the 5 trust members being the only ones who are reviewing applications. I think we have to rely on some kind of professional opinions, expertise to look at an application that, a lot of work will have gone in to put it together, and to have 5 laymen look at a document without getting, technical feedback from the town's planning office, or the public works or public safety, public health, I think does a disservice to the town itself, for which we would hope to be able to take advantage of that expertise, because we don't know everything, but we'll be making decisions, and I hope can be getting technical expertise. In fact, I'll say on another matter that, and I'm not sure how to pursue this, but that there are also, outside funds like Mass Housing Partnership or the Mass Housing have grant programs for or technical assistance programs to help with site selection, site suitability, and that's a level of technical expertise I think that we really need to see brought to bear on, okay, here's the surplus state property, what are you going to do with it? Well, wouldn't that be a good question to ask a grant-funded technical assistance from Mass Housing or somewhere? But that's just part of the issue of the technical expertise that I think that it would be helpful for us to have. Any other initial comments? Rich, was that? Yes.
Yeah, a couple. I just want, as we finalize this, to be sure that we don't create any more barriers to getting something done than we already have. For instance, there's reference here to fiscal years. We don't have to be constrained by a fiscal year. I mean, I think, yes, we need to know what the financing plan is for something, but they don't have to do it by town fiscal years. And I also want to be careful that we're not asking for, de novo hearings about funding something that has gone through the appropriate permitting process. Reaching out, as you're suggesting, to get a review of costs or something from DPW or whomever, an outsider, is fine. But seems to me that we shouldn't get in the business of sort of holding an independent public hearing on this, which isn't explicitly in there, but I thought could be implied. And then finally, there's a soft cost limitation in there that makes all the sense in the world when, a nonprofit entity or even the town is coming forward and saying, we've got this building, we want to do these things with it, and the soft costs are limited. I mean, for large projects coming to us, we're going to see soft costs before we see the full budget. And I just want to be careful that we don't put ourselves in a box there.
Thanks. Thanks for that comment, Rich. Any other initial comments before I dive into some of these documents. And in fact, it would be I'll say it might be my hope that if we get to the point where we feel like we've got a good draft by the end of this meeting, that I would like to then to distribute that to our housing roundtable partners and others, and say, here's our draft and we're going to vote to adopt it at our next meeting. And just give them that, we've worked with them up till now, and there have been the opportunities for them to work with us. And here's one last chance before we have the document in place. And I hope that if we were to do that, I hope the meeting could be a week from tonight, because October is after that. But in any event, we can talk about that as we let's see what progress we make here tonight. And I'm going to start with okay, I got to find the document that I want to share. That's it. This one. Okay. The first of the two documents that I'd like to go through is one I'm calling Guidelines for Housing Production Plan Implementation Priority Project Sponsors Applying to the Trust for Grant Funds. Long title, can probably be shortened, but this is the document which I would envision that we might want to update each year. It sort of describes, it lists a lot of language out of the grant application just submitted to the CPC, which took pains to describe the process of how do we, what's a housing production plan? What are the goals? How do we identify with our partners priority projects, and then select which ones go forward? So that, in fact, this opening language is actually the short description of the project that we're seeking CPC funding for, and that is to implement the housing production plan strategies to create affordable units and advance the priority projects by inviting applications from them for trust funding on a rolling basis as each of those projects becomes ready to proceed. And saying that we, in coordination with our partners, that we'll maintain and periodically update the list of priority projects. We would invite those project sponsors to complete and submit an application for funding to us on a rolling basis as each project becomes ready to proceed. We would then review the applications ourselves, but with assistance from town staff, with comments from any affected town departments, and provide opportunity for input from all roundtable partners and the public. I'm not suggesting a public meeting as much as per se, but rather that we do our business in public, and that we have posted agendas, and when we have topics of interest, people come to our meetings and offer us their comments. And I want us to ensure that. After that, negotiate the terms of a grant award for each successful applicant. And I just, by way of a footnote, I gave one example of, in one case, for the funding for the Assabet that came from the trust and that went to the seller. That $600,000 portion appears in a mortgage from the trust from the CHDC back to the trust to secure those funds, and that we, as each of the 5 units is the deed restriction is recorded, that we will reduce the amount of the outstanding mortgage by 20%. Just one example, and that we would monitor progress through completion.
Keith, before you go too
Yeah.
much further, would you like some comments?
Sure, please.
So, and forgive me, I do this to all of you all the time, but I've just got so much material on my mind. Did the housing production plan itself talk about the ability to respond to other opportunities that might present themselves? I read that somewhere and I can't remember if it was in the HPP or where it was. And the reason that that question is important, because if it doesn't appear there,
Yeah.
Some language in one of your bullets, I think, at least allows for that opportunity.
Yeah, I guess what I'm envisioning is that if we, since what we're about is doing things in coordination with our housing roundtable partners, because we want to keep the group working together, that if there was something that's not on this, I'd propose the following. If there's some new thing, some new project that's not on this list, and the list, by the way, this is basically our list of construction projects. If there's something else, some other opportunity that comes up, I think that it would behoove us to go back to our housing roundtable partners and amend the list. And then say, okay, well, you know what? There's this other thing, there's this other opportunity, which will get away from us, but we need to be aware of it. That we'd like your feedback, but at our next meeting, we're going to add it to. We're going to amend our priority list to include that one, to that new project, and then invite. And then we would invite that project to submit an application. I don't want us doing that in a vacuum, though, but I don't want any projects coming in off the street either. Without going, someone could come and brief us, talk about it, but
by that mere description,
yeah,
your opening line where it says seeks to implement the 2023-28 housing production plan.
Yeah.
And other opportunities.
No, I would reject that. Well, it's just me. I would reject it completely. That there are plenty of, I think, any conceivable opportunity that would come up is in the plan.
Is it really, Keith? Suppose I mean, I'm just pulling this out of my ear, but the Di Giovanni's came forward and said, we'll sell you the old Welch's building for $500,000.
Yeah, other land for the covers a lot.
Well, okay, I mean,
strategy
yeah,
3,
okay.
other land, and it's not an exhaustive list of other land that's in there, but the fact that we would consider other land, I think, allows us to be true to implementing the housing production plan. Because we know that there's going to be things that we didn't see, and that we're trying to do a number of things here, including have follow through on whatever commitments we think we're going to make to the projects that we've already identified.
Wouldn't it be the case though that the concerns that, like Frank is expressing, we would be amending this document each year, and as we do that, we would be taking things off that we've dealt with and putting new things back on, and isn't that the case?
Yeah, absolutely, and we could do it more often than that if need be. If there were some,
I think the point is, if something came up, the first step would be for us as a trust to decide whether or not it is going to help us with the implementation of the housing production plan. And if it does, then I would suggest that it would show up on an amended chart, like the one that we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously we need to, we don't want to buy, somebody's garden shed, but if you think that that's adequate, Mike, I'm comfortable with that. I'm just, I remember when 930 Main came up, sort of came out of the woodwork, and we had to act quickly, and we got 2 units out of it. So anyhow, that if you think that we can sort of define what supports the HPP as we go along, if there's a very attractive opportunity, then I can live with that. But that is my concern.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's it.
Yeah,
And
and
I think
let's,
that's the
yeah.
flexibility I was looking for, yes.
yeah, I think the process has the flexibility, and it could even be, for example, that let's say some great opportunity came up, and every one of us says, wow, that one, we've got to move that as high as to the list as we can. What you then look at is, well, okay, well then let's rethink, let's look more closely at what would would the cash be needed to consummate some of the, not to back out of either of these projects, the acquiring the surplus state property or funding the 40B. But when is the cash required? If the, could, and I'm just giving an example, but if it was to our benefit to grab this other opportunity and to deal with the surplus state property a year from now, then we could move it over to this column, and that would free up some money that we could have available for something else. But it is a budget. We've got finite resources, and it's simply a matter of updating our budget and being thoughtful and deliberative about what the impacts of that are. But I think that it would have the flexibility to allow for something new. And this is why this document would need to be amended on a periodic basis. It would be amended every time our priorities need to be adjusted.
So,
Like
The-
that, because then it's a kind of a contained process. There's a housing production plan which guides us. It's our list of stuff we know about, and we're continuously reviewing that list and adding and taking off as necessary.
the footnote for this chart, Keith,
Yeah.
it just reminds me that, while this is reflecting, what our priorities are as of now, I'm always concerned when I read this footnote a couple different times that we're missing capturing what CMAT has already put money towards.
Yes. Excellent. And we could add that information in this document. We certainly could. And it would probably, and in fact, I think that would be an excellent addition to this document, because we do keep track of, what, we put money into 10 units.
What we've already
Yeah,
out.
the nearly $1 million we've spent, or that has been spent from the cumulative $4 million that has been available
Right.
to us and our predecessor, the select board.
And as a way not to lose that over time, lose the clarity on that over time.
Yes, yeah, that would be, let me see.
Sources of project funding to date and proposed sources of funding for completion, something like that.
Yeah, I think what I would want to do is maybe I'll add insert. Let's see. I'll put in a table at this point. Insert funding to date. And so that'll be a ready reference. I think this and I could add footnotes as well, if it's necessary to describe. I've got other documents where it goes into details about what prior funding for ASABET has been, and I think there are ways to address that. Okay, yeah, that's a good suggestion to add.
CPC, by the way, will be looking for, leverage money. And since you're asking for money, you could show what you've already put on the table.
Right. How about I'll indicate what we've spent our money on and include how that leverage, including how other funds were leveraged for those projects. Okay.
I understand that point. Do we want to be even more explicit? I mean, if somebody's going to come to us, shouldn't there be a complete financial plan associated with the project?
Yes, yeah,
A
and
$2
that,
million plan, we've got 500 here, 600 there. We're asking you for 3 or whatever it is.
yes, that level of information is requested in the application form. I'll quickly go to that document while we're talking about it.
But my point is, though, if it's embedded in the primary document, then adding the line about additional funding becomes, I think, redundant.
Yeah, I've got
What do
two.
we do about projects that don't know what they're gonna cost? I mean, we have no idea at this point with Junction Village, other than,
We don't invite them.
Yeah, they don't come.
They don't know. For Junction Village, we're inviting, we'll ask for a detailed accounting of how the $50,000 that they want will be spent. And the application form asks for, the application form that I would suggest that we use asks for no different information than what the CPC is already asking applicants for, that we're not creating any new categories that they didn't. And they, I'm not so sure that they get the answers that they ask for in their application form, but they're asking for, just closing a lot of my other files so I can find what I'm looking for.
yeah, I just don't want us to be in a position where you can't apply because you're at the stage where you don't know what it's gonna cost.
Well, that's sort of the beauty of what we're saying, that we'll invite them when they're ready to proceed.
Yeah,
We're
always
putting them-
invite them to come talk to us.
Yeah. I mean, we're inviting everyone to talk with us now, and for the ones that are in our primary category or for this year, we would, we'll have conversations with CHDC to determine when they will be ready to proceed, and at that point, we'll ask them to submit a grant application for some amount, but we'll want to stay in close contact with them. Yeah, so just on the point of what yeah, applicants should professionally prepare quotes for project costs. Estimates, budget should include administrative costs, other sources of funding. but I think the CPC form is in essence asking for the detailed information, other funding sources, that that we would want to see. Here it is.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but aren't we gonna want to support projects that, or, I mean, at this point, all DC can tell us about Junction Village is what's in their request for, planning funding. And, they haven't done it.
It's not, yeah,
That's just because they haven't even seen proposals from developers yet.
right. And I don't think it's a high bar to say that, and I see Liz's hand up, so maybe she can just address what information CHDC would be able to provide when we ask for how the $50,000 is going to be spent.
Oh, well, I was going to say, first, in general, the way project budgets usually work is you always start off with a conceptual budget, and then it refines as the projects go forward. So I think that there's always a conceptual budget that you could get, and whether it's important when you're looking for multiple sources of funding to have funding commitments from all your funders at the different stages, right? So I think that if you're going to be an important part of the funding, you'll probably be asked for a commitment, even if it's a conditional commitment. It's like getting a mortgage or something. Like, yes, we'll give you this if you provide this, this, and this, and this at closing, right? Like understanding there's details and things to work out, but that there's a commitment just so that people can go forward and other funders can then participate. And that's kind of like how it was with Junction Village, right? Like, Mike, you probably remember, like, the town money had to come in so that the state money could come in, even though those figures in the budget hadn't been sent out to bid and to have contract numbers on the budget, right? So it's kind of an evolution process. In terms of the $50,000 specifically, I don't know that there's anything in detail there. There's just no money anywhere to do any work to further the project. But I think that the CPC, I mean, the CHDC could probably come up with some, example of the kinds of pieces, and certainly wouldn't, or I think how it's been in the past with the trust is that when the expenses are incurred, that then they are submitted for reimbursement or payment from the trust. So it's not a blanket, you've given the $50,000 to the CHDC. So that's how it worked for Assabet River Bluff, right?
Right.
Like you get this and then, okay, well, here's the receipt for the architecture and here's the receipt for this. Though, I think when it was contemplated back in the beginning, I don't know that the detail of each of those pieces with their amounts were known at the time, but it was more general. And then the payout was specific in line with the terms of the award, if that helps.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'd want to mention is I think, well, for starters, we're for the projects that we're inviting for, we're moving away, or trying to move away from having applications come in via an email and then a vote. It's that there's a more rigorous process by which we're going to identify how trust funds are used, and we're going to start using a formal application form that is no different than the one that, there's no practical difference to the form that's being proposed here and the one that the Community Preservation Committee already requires, and that town departments and others have been, using for years. And so it's a no, we're not creating any unusual standard for information. I think what we're, and depending on the project, that if it's, if the point at which the CHDC needs to be able to walk away with $50,000 to start doing pre-development work on Junction Village, is the point when we'll need to have an application that has enough information for us to be on the same wavelength about how that money's going to be spent, what the total, what even the earliest estimate is of the total project cost. I think wrote that. So that we can see a big picture. But that it really is, but the idea that the trust in following these procedures, if we did that, that the trust is engaging in a series of conversations over a long period of time with the project sponsors, so that we will be in agreement with each other that, okay, now it's time to submit the grant application. We know so much about the project. We know so much about how it's heading. We see what the process is.
That's important, Keith, because that's what differentiates us, even though the application is somewhere with CPC. Essentially, the CPC doesn't talk to anybody until they get applications.
Yeah.
And then they go through a process of vetting the application to try to decide about the allocation. We, on the other hand, our application is going to come at the end of a process. And so we'll be able to, continue to forge forward as we gain information and as projects develop. And at some point, we'll be at the stage where we'll be able to say, all right, Project A, I think it's time for you to send us an application.
Right. Yeah. That if where we can do that, I think we'll be carrying out the purpose of these procedures, and that it will depend on a lot of two-way communication between the trust and a project sponsor to know. We're looking at it from our perspective, but we've got to understand what theirs is too. And as Liz says, that if there are other reasons why they need for other funding sources, need to see how much is the trust into a particular project, then we have to come to enough of a common understanding about the big picture to be comfortable doing that, which I'm sure we can be. So
to that point, to Mike's point, CPC essentially has the same leverage because they do not pay the invoices until the work is done, with some rare exceptions depending on how the application came in. And so essentially, if we're at the end of the process, when facts are known, money will be spent within the time span where it's needed. And I thought that was part of our earlier conversation.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why, we've made our initial attempt at identifying which projects do we think are going to be ready to go this fiscal year. We may be wrong. Some of those projects may not be ready to go, and but we're essentially saying for now, here are the ones that we have enough of a commitment to that we want to engage with those sponsors to understand what their timetable is, what their big picture is, and I'd say probably to jointly agree at what point along the process does the application need to be submitted in order for us to commit those funds in a way that allows them to either get started on the project or to represent to other funding sources that the money is there when all the pieces are in place. I think we have to understand. Understand that. And this is the point at which we ought to understand it, and the town's housing planner ought to understand it too, whoever that is.
Keith, what his next step is to produce kind of a clean document
Yeah, I'd like to, a clean draft document for us to circulate. This has been circulating amongst us. I'd like to have it to go to all of our partners and say, we're going to take a vote at our next meeting to finalize our procedures, and would welcome your input before we do that. So let me,
Good things. We're not going to be able, are we going to be able to get this done by next Tuesday?
well, I mean, we could, or is that, I'm not I guess I'm not understanding the question.
I thought the next step was clean document.
Yes,
Document goes out to our partners. Come back, we incorporate whatever points we wish to into a final document, and then we vote to accept it.
yes, and if we could do that at at whenever our next meeting is, I think that would be, that's what I would hope to see. I think that getting a good draft document out on the street to get feedback would be a very useful
Me too.
exercise for us, because we need to hear how it impacts the sponsors, so that we can.
Yeah, I think that's
Useful,
exactly right. With the one thing I might suggest is if you get a clean copy out, I would certainly be willing to allocate to you, although I'm sorry for giving you work to do, but
Yeah.
that if our partners send comments in, you should feel perfectly free to incorporate really good ideas. And then present us with what you consider to be an amended document based on input from our partners.
Sure, yeah, I think I could certainly get something out to them by tomorrow. If I've just got a few, if it's all right, I think I want to go back to the documents now, and if I can get some further clarity on particular parts of it, I think we might be in a position to get out a draft document tomorrow. So for starters, I'm going to go, I think I'm opening the right one. I'll go back to the document that I started with, and let me just finish running through it. And after the initial introduction, there's a list of our current projects as of September 2023. It describes in words what those 8 projects are, and also talks about the need for Junction Village. Next, yeah. Yes.
I'm wondering if it's how important it is to say it's anticipated a total of $3 million are expected to be distributed to these projects, rather than.
That's what the CPC has been told in their grant application.
Okay.
And I wouldn't, I'd want to couch it in terms of anticipated, because as I say, we may need more or less than $3 million to do the 4 projects that we are in this category.
Is there any reason you couldn't put anticipated in this document?
I have it right here.
Okay.
Total of $3 million from the trust. Current fund balance is anticipated.
Okay, good. Okay.
Allocated to those.
Sorry, I thought you said it wasn't there.
So, all right, then next what I've done here, and I don't think we'll have a lot of time to discuss it, so I'll just blurt out what we've got here. In looking at what our selection criteria are, and I noted that the CPC is a very, voluminous document to talk about their selection criteria. And you know what? We actually have selection criteria that have been approved by the select board. And it's found in two places. First, it's found in our interim policy guidelines adopted a year ago. And it's all of these things except for the second one, but it's all of these things that we said a year ago. And then just last week, we've added, basically we get to add this one. And I should say, when we were working on an updated interim guidelines version 2.0 or some months ago, we had only come up with one edit to this list. And that edit was to add this, that the project would accelerate priority projects identified in the updated housing production plan. So by adding that one to the existing ones that we had said before and that the select board had signed off on, we have an updated list that the select board has signed up on. Everything that's listed here, these criteria, are ones that have, that this board has voted on and the select board has approved for policy. So we might want to amend some of those, and Megan Zamuto had some suggested edits. But if we're going to, send a draft document out and finalize it next week, I think it would be quite appropriate to hit the street with a list of criteria that lists what is in documents that have already been approved.
I agree, and obviously adding the HPP is an important selection criteria.
Yeah, that was the critical one for me, that we've got, that's really what we're all about. And that is really the only practical difference from the list of criteria that we've had up till now. Then the balance of the document was simply for a reader to know who we are, to know what the housing production funding plan is. I thought, in some documents you would lead with this and put it at the front, but then it makes it a mystery novel, and you have to read all the way to the end to find out, well, what are the projects? And I thought, I chose to write it more as a news story. Here's the headline up here. Here's our process, and here are the projects, and then the rest of it dives back into the detail of how did we get here. I will add a table. I've got it already prepared in other documents that I can pull in, reminding folks how we've. I could even include an excerpt of our of the document that had been compiled showing where our funding is coming from, 4 million in, 1 million out thus far, and a balance of 3 million. That might be a useful thing. And then to show what the 10 affordable units are that we've been working on. Housing production plan, describing the process for implementing the priorities, and that's it. That's that document, and it's I think it's 3 pages. So I think we would, once I add the table with how we've spent the money up till now, I think we've got a good draft to invite comments on for this one. This is the one that we would update periodically. Now I'm going to switch over to the other document. Any questions about that one? Let's see if I can find the other one, which is this one. This one at some level is more straightforward. It's based on the CPC application form itself. Instead of referring to their community preservation plan. I'm referring to the housing production plan and document the guidelines for apply for sponsor priority project sponsors to apply to the trust, the other document. And to address all of the submission requirements, which are below, and the selection criteria, which we will put in the first document. Repeats or adds the line that we're implementing the housing production plan to advance priority projects by inviting applications on a rolling basis as each project becomes ready to proceed.
So what is your definition of ready to proceed?
My definition would be when the sponsor and the trust both agree that now's the time to fill out the application form. That's when they would be ready to proceed. Because they want to spend the money, they need to commit the money, and that we think that the application will have all the information that we need in order to give our approval. And I'll use Assabet River Bluff just by way of example, that the CHDC itself is submitting a.
So do we want to say priority projects become ready to proceed as mutually agreed
No,
by the trust and the applicant?
no. I wouldn't want to say that.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying verbally, but I'm not sure if someone just read this, picked up, I want to see if the trust can fund my project, right?
If they haven't talked to us,
Yes.
and then they shouldn't read anything into this. That they're not going to be, if they haven't talked to us, they're not going to be, we're not going to invite them to submit a grant application.
That I understand.
I have to go, folks. Sorry.
All right, thank you.
Good discussion. Interesting to see how you come out on it, right?
Thank you.
You. We're sure you'll have comments on our draft, so thanks.
Yeah, and some of it's just like, as it gets, as you hear projects and you see what information they have, what their urgency is, I think that you'll learn more about what you mean by some of these words and intentions.
Yeah, and right, and I don't want to be doing all the thinking on behalf of what the sponsors should be asking for in here, and would really invite sponsors to say, well, what does the sponsor need and when, and how do they articulate, and how can they articulate that to us to help us understand their perspective? So
I mean, the key is, I think that as you talked about, like, you don't even get here until you're invited to apply.
Right.
So the first barrier is, how do you get invited if you weren't already on the list? And I think you've talked about that somewhat.
right, you come and talk to us and we talk to our roundtable partners and do or don't put the new project on the list.
Yeah, so that's a trickier process probably. Okay, thank you. All right, have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, and even on that example, folks, I think that we'll have, if there's a better way to say it, then we can do that. Me personally, I'm not ready to give up on the authority of the trust to make a final decision here. I don't know why we would say that we've got a mutual, reach a mutual agreement with
I think I was more
anybody.
trying to get at Liz's point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it would certainly be useful to hear from the sponsors of what are the circumstances under which they're likely to be ready to proceed, and see if we agree with that perspective. But And just again, continuing with the example of the trust of the CHDC. Today, I would say today, this moment, this date, September 19th, the CHDC is not ready to proceed with, or is not ready to have the Assabet project proceed. They are not as ready as they will be a couple of months from now, I hope, when they have a PRD, approved PRD plan approved by the planning board and are issuing a request for proposals to the development community. That to me will be much more an indicator of their readiness to proceed and our eagerness to have them submit a funding application to us. Even if we, are going on a joint journey with them as they review their proposals and fine tune how much are they going to apply for, because it's this group it's been our group that has said, well, we don't want to see things on paper if that sends the wrong, we don't want to see dollar figures on paper if that sends the wrong signal to the development community. If that's so, we ought to come to a common understanding of what what the trust, what the CHDC needs to be able to tell the development community in order to get proposals. So, and then this is all sort of doing a deep dive on one project, but so let me just get through the rest of this, these procedures. We're going to each application that's invited must use the application form. It's not too much to ask. Requests the funding request would address statement of need, project scope, any information about the property. This is the standard language the CPC is using. Very brief summary of the project, identifying which housing production plan strategies are addressed, how many affordable units would be created, and at what household incomes, if they have that information. Some may not. What the key steps to complete the project are, and to identify any non-trust funding. Obtain professional quotes where possible. Some may not have that. And then we get down to the nitty-gritty of the minutia of what does an application look like. And I hope we can not require unbound applications, not in 3-ring binders and photo and so on. I think it would be better for us if we got them electronically, and unless there are folks here, would you all want printed copies of everything? I mean, we can do that, but then if they're submitting printed copies to some place, then you got to go and get them to wherever that is. And we haven't been told where that is, so I don't know. Applicants should review the housing production plan and our other document. Those are available, will be available on the website. Then this is just the mechanics of how we would be reached, which the town will tell us. We'll fill in the blanks. Then the rest of the document is very little change from the application instructions that the CPC gives right now to all of the projects that.
I'm good with this. Let's get this in a cleaned up form and get it out.
And that's it.
Let's rock and roll here.
Keith and Mike and Linda, I still have only one concern. How do you come into us at the very first stages of a project that we generally like when you don't have costs? I mean, I'll come back to my hypothetical of, the Di Giovanni's will sell us the old Welch building at a really nice price for reasons of their own. We don't know what it's going to cost to turn that into housing. But somebody's got to do that and, do the drawings and all that sort of thing.
Right.
Do the cost estimates.
That's a
Can
great
we fund that?
example. Yeah, great example. And the answer to that would be, is that if there is such a project where the first thing it needs is an analysis of the feasibility of doing something with it, I think that's on us. I think that then the trust on our own motion would dip into the $100,000 that we're reserving for site-specific studies and say, that we will take that on. The trust would because because our plan already says that we want to do that. And if we want to advance a specific property that comes to us that way, and we think that it has enough of possibility to be of greater interest, I think we could add it on our own motion.
Do we want to do that ourselves as opposed to having, giving CHDC or the house, maybe the housing authority thinks they'd like the whole building?
Well, but
hey, we can get this in a deal.
Yeah, we
We
would
have
be.
to figure out what it's going to cost.
Yeah, that's a great comment. I mean, our role could certainly be to say, hey, thanks for meeting with us, but you're really going to meet with some other group to see who your sponsor is to undertake the project. I think we want to, before we spent any significant money, before we spent even like $10,000 or $20,000 on the studies for a project, we'd have to have some pretty specific information about, is there some option that's being offered with that property? Is there some, what are the terms under which this is being done? And I would say the trust itself is a bunch of volunteers sitting around a virtual table, would be out of our comfort zone to be doing that without the support of the town's professional housing planning assistance, wherever that comes from.
I agree, but does CHDC have the staff to do that analysis? I mean, it seems to me
CHDC
money for professional estimators and stuff, and I wouldn't want to turn them down.
Yeah. So there are resources that are out there. We can help match people up. There are some, as I indicated before, there are some state grant opportunities that are available for projects, not for everyone.
I agree with Rich on this. With that particular example, CHCD or CHA would probably be the likely place for them to start. And they have the expertise, and then CHCD does have staff, and so does CHA. And if not, then they go.
Who's the CHDC's staff?
They hire Liz Russ.
But maybe they need to do more than that. Maybe they need, I can see, again, coming back to the hypothetical, there's probably $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 that would have to be spent before you could figure out that it would be, reasonably cost effective to do that. And I want the trust to be able to say, you're a reliable partner, CHA or CHDC. We'll give you this money to get to the point where we can all decide whether we want to do this.
I think so, and I think it would likely play out that that's probably where we would be, even to look at the matter of how to develop that surplus state property. We may be the funding source, but we're not going to be the mover.
Right. Yeah, and all I'm saying is we need to be able, the whole idea is to accelerate the process. Back to the hypothetical. they're ready to do this, they want to get rid of this building, but they'll sell it at a discount. We'll give you a 6-month option. We got to decide if, that particular building can be turned into housing. We should give money to either CHA or CHTC in a small amount so they can do that. And then they and we can decide, is this a real project? I just don't want this thing to drag, again, the hypothetical, but I
Right,
think.
and we've already put on among the 8 projects that we've listed as priorities, is setting aside money, and it could be tapped sooner rather than later, if need be, for doing site-specific work for an example, just like what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, and I think, we've said that for CHA, but I don't know, do we just add CHDC? I'm not saying that any random outside developer should come to us. I just don't want our development agencies to be constrained in the funding of the initial phases of a attractive, sizable project.
Yeah,
And I don't want to drag this meeting.
yeah, and maybe what's called for is just to have a little more flesh on the bones to describe what is this, reserving $100,000 for site-specific studies. How does that work? And what we're really talking about is facilitating exploration by competent sponsors to explore actual opportunities to see if they are worth pursuing.
Okay, if you think we can use small amounts of that money, I mean, $20,000 or $30,000 is small, but there's not a whole lot of staff, even with Liz Russ' operation running around doing that, and they may have to go outside to professional.
Well, they would have to go, and that's my point, that they would have to go outside to get the professional expertise. Nothing wrong with that. But they would need a funding source for it. It's certainly not in the basic service level that the town pays for, that the CHDC budgets for.
And are you interpreting these guys to say that we could do that? That CHA could come to us and say, we need $30,000 to figure out if it's cost effective to turn this discounted cost building into housing.
Yes, and that would be, and if it's a matter of exploring it and doing studies, initial studies, I would say we've already committed that as being a use of our trust funds that we would. It's on our list. It's one of the 8 check marks that are on our priority project list.
Keith, when you provide the clean copy, you send it to our housing partners.
Yeah.
You're going to solicit some reaction to the draft. Could you please keep track, and then you're going to incorporate what you think are the better ideas, as Mike framed it. Can you please keep track of the total comments you get and from where? Because
I'll keep track of it. It's going to be easier for me to keep track of the total than it is for me to be determined what's a good idea and what's not.
Okay.
So you
because
I may leave the editing to the group, but I will maintain a comprehensive list of any comments that come in. And
the source of where they come from is also instructive.
Yeah. So, all right. So, is there, I think for tonight, it would be helpful to have a vote, and let me take a look at my notes.
You want something like to revise as discussed?
Yeah.
The housing partners and submit to the CMHT board for approval of a final document.
Right. It would be to how about move that the trust vote to approve the draft form of the guidelines for housing production plan implementation, priority project sponsors applying to the trust for grant funds, close quote, and guidelines for submission of applications for trust funding documents for comment by our Concord Housing Roundtable partners by the trust's next meeting on September 27th. Let's see, it's for adoption. For a comment by our Housing Roundtable partners. So that the trust can adopt a final version at its next meeting on September 27th.
So
How
the
about that?
the clean copy you're going to send out to the
Yes.
board and to the sponsors
Yes,
will reflect our recommended changes tonight,
yes,
correct? And you'll also change the date of the clean copy from the current draft date. It's at the top of the,
yes, yeah, the one I'm working with has today's date on it now, yeah.
Okay.
Very good. So is there a motion? Is there a so moved on that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion by
Wait
Rich.
for Linda.
Yeah, waiting on Linda for second by Linda. Second.
Mike was there
Okay, Mike was there.
at the ready.
Okay, very good. So further discussion on that motion. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Linda,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
and Keith, aye. So that passes 4-0. Thank you very much. We accomplished a lot tonight, and I appreciate it. The rest of our agenda was a legislative update, which let's put off. And Rich, do you have is there any late breaking news about?
Yeah, we're meeting with Senators Cusack and Moran tomorrow and Secretary Augustus next week. It appears the administration is favorably inclined to include the transfer fee in the housing bond bill, but we haven't seen it yet.
Right. Well, that's a great update. Thanks very much, and we'll look forward to hearing more about that. And those are which co-chairs were those?
Cusack and Moran, I think they're housing, aren't they?
No, Arcero's.
But they're housing.
Must be, is it revenue?
Yeah, it may well be revenue.
Yeah, very good. Well, that's great. So look forward to further updates on that. Any public comment? All right, thank you. And our next meeting will be on Tuesday, September 27th at 5 p.m.
26.
26th. Thank you for that.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, I don't know why I have the 27th on my mind. What else is going on then? But the 26th, okay. Yeah, our motion will say the 26th. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Roll call vote. Linda,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
and Keith, aye. And the meeting is adjourned at 6:49. Sorry to